Good day to each and everyone. I'd like to welcome all to the International Conference on Teaching, Education, and Learning. My name is Dr. Patrick D. Cerna, and I'm a professor from the Philippine Science High School, Caraga Region Campus, Republic of the Philippines. I'm going to give a talk entitled Adaptive Blended Learning for STEM Education in the Midst of COVID-19 Pandemic. It has been known that this COVID-19 pandemic crisis has changed the way of life. It affects the healthcare system in each of the every country in this world, including the way we pursue about education. It even shut down all campuses in the world, and it affected a billion of students who are currently out of the classroom this time. However, it was an opportunity for the rise on distinct of an e-learning platform or a digital learning. This research shows that online learning increases retention of information because it is inflexible in nature. Any student can visit the learning materials anytime and do their assessment as long as they are ready. In the ground zero Wuhan in China, government encouraged schools to set up their online learning platform, and 81% of these K-12 students are now undergoing and continuing this education. Now, what is really a STEM education? So basically, it's a curricula with the idea of educating the combination of four disciplines: science, technology, the engineering, and mathematics. So the science is where students uh, learn about experimentations, predictions, uh, anything that's field in the field of physics, biology, and on technology is where the students will learn about developing innovative and inventive technology using the tools normally available in a computer software and some hardware components like 3D printers and prototype and microcontrollers. And the engineering disciplines help them solve problems using materials. They know how to design the engineering, basic engineering principles. And for mathematics, they learn about patterning, sequencing, analytical thinking, and critical thinking. Now, to continue, the principle of STEM education lies that students should be able to communicate ideas in a variety of ways. If you look at the pyramid, in STEM education, 70% should be focused on demonstrations, okay, or practical approach. So lectures, if you can see at the top, it's 5%, and it's more on an inquiry-based type of learning. Now, recently, the STEM education has been transformed into a STEAM education where they added the concept of arts. Okay? STEM education is they expect that students will be a problem solvers, innovators, inventors, okay, using the principles that they learn in mathematics, science, technology, and engineering. With the addition of STEM, or I mean addition of arts to make it STEAM, students are now expected to 4 times more likely to be recognized in their academic achievements. Okay? And they improve critical thinking, logical reasoning, okay, and interpretative skills. As we go on, in applying or continuing STEM education in any countries of the world, One approach is called the blended learning. It's not fully online learning, where just students at the comfort of their home using their uh, computer laptops and mobile devices access the lectures, do the assessment. But it is a complex process where it combines both the face-to-face approach and the online activities. So how it is being done? There are 5 ways to implement blended learning. Again, it combines face-to-face delivery at the same time the online delivery. Now, it must have also a sort of rotation where employees cycle through a schedule of independent online study and a face-to-face classroom line. And the curricula should be flexible by nature and is delivered digitally. And trainers should be available by support. That means teachers and instructors and mentors became a facilitator of learning, which means learning materials are already ready. It is being uploaded online and accessible by students anywhere, and instructors will just be there to facilitate their learning, give some clarifications, answer questions, and for STEM education, where the practical demonstration is present, there is a form of labs where the labs or laboratory education is being done either digitally or physically. Okay? But understanding the situation now, some of these labs are done digitally using the online and software platform. One model of blended learning, which is most popular, is the flipped classroom. So in a flipped teaching or in flipped classes, we observe, or there is some, the model should be observed before, during, and after. Okay? Which means we deliver the flipped classroom by preparing the materials, deliver them or implement, and then we a sort of assessment or revalida. Now, in flipped teaching, teachers, because this is a combination of face-to-face and online learning, teachers working at home must create, or it's a time for them to create video lectures, okay? Instructional materials, which are both structured and unstructured, and students must be able to access and watch it or read from it from their own respective homes. And during the time when they do the face-to-face at school, teachers will just facilitate the delivery of learning if they have questions, clarifications, some guidelines on how to uh, deliver the every modules, and students will perform some assessments that needs physical presence with the teachers aside from the online platform. Now there is also a concept which is it uses the computational science algorithms and models in computing, which is called adaptive learning. This is one form of learning where students uh, learn based on their own learning style. So it uses a combination of a pedagogical and the analytical thinking uh, in an online platform. So normally in adaptive learning, we still use the blended learning approach using the learning management system, but it has capability of prediction and intervention and adaptation. Wherein, if you see here in this diagram, this is a dashboard between both the teachers and the student. Teachers will deliver the learning materials in different form based on the learning style of the students. So uh, the students will just make a pre-assessment And based on the result of the pre-assessment, the student uh, will access the materials based on its preferred learning style. Now, in this approach, there's an intelligent adaptive learning mechanism. Okay? Again, it uses the cognitive model where it has a prediction, uh, interventions, and every time the students will access or give uh, answer some assessment or pre-assessment in the materials, it is stored in a database and it will immediately give feedback on the teachers. Okay, so all right, to make it more further, it means that the materials that is preferred by the teachers is very suitable to the student learning style. Okay, because in adaptive learning technology, uh, the curriculum may vary, or I mean, the curriculum will stay, but the delivery and the learning materials will vary based on the learning style of the students. So, in order for us to do so, the prior learning of the students will also be acknowledged and accounted. There is also an interactive learning management, student engagement in this platform. Now, in doing so, in performing adapted blended learning, we will utilize the current learning management system that is available online, whether it is free or whether it's paid. So some of these are the original Moodle, the Blackboard, Sakai, Canvas, Neo, Schoology. Eh? These are popular learning management systems. Now, in understanding how to adapt or embed this adapted type of blended learning is we need to see first what are the advantages of LMS. So basically, okay, it engages learning, geographically independent learning. So from this concept, we can customize that the learning for each of the students is independent by nature and they have their own learning style. So this learning style can be um interpreted in the form of the abbreviation VAC or visual, auditory, and kinesthetic to determine the dominant learning style. And also, based on this diagram, some students are really a combination of all, which is they are called multimodal, which is majority of the students. Okay. Okay. Two platforms or two framework has been uh, proposed by prominent researchers. One is from Liganagi, Gunawardi, and Hirakawa in 2014, where they have customized model LMS or learning management system to support adapted blended learning. So in this case, the concept is still a model still applies, but before the students will be able to access the learning materials, he must answer a learning style questionnaire after registering to a certain course or certain subject. After that one, the system or the learning management system will determine, it will monitor and learn profile using a creation agent which appropriate learning style is suitable for that student, whether it is he is uh, very good in kinesthetic, uh, or auditory and visual, eh? Or a combination of multimodal, and it will give recommendation to the instructor through an expert recommendation agent, wherein the instructor will can modify learning materials that suitable for that student. So it's purely independent and instructor to learner approach, one-on-one approach. And another model that is presented by Nangshin in 2017, okay, is the use of dynamic scaffolding and self-assessment rubrics, okay, in adaptive learning. Okay, so similar to the framework by Hirakawa, Tunawardana, and Lianagi, okay, students still undergo an adaptive retrieval module after the student will know or will be surveyed on which learning style model is suitable for his or her studies. Now, in order for us to implement this in a or embed this adaptive learning into the current learning management system, we start first by the approach should be understanding. After we identify the subject area, there should be a questionnaire again to recognize the prior learning. Okay? And the result will determine the preferred learning style, whether it is visual, auditory, or kinesthetic, or a combination, multimodal. And the students will take the learning pattern identified, and it is expected that it increase its pass rate or it's increase the performance. So basically, to do this is that the LMS of the learning management system, the teachers should, okay, divide the student into 4 different clusters. The first cluster should be visual, a separate cluster for audio, a separate cluster for kinesthetic, and a separate cluster for those students who have multiple sensory or a combination of these three. So those students who are very comfortable with visual, materials are delivered in a multimedia platform. The case is even in multimedia, maybe games or game-based learning. Okay, and we are going to discuss in the succeeding slide these concepts. Audio, those auditory students, their content is through audio podcasts. Okay? Even their quizzes and assessment is done in audio form. And those kinesthetic students who are very suitable and comfortable with movements and practical demonstration, students are given a demonstration through a workshop of the materials, and an interactive quiz is being done, probably using a simulation-based approach or competency-based approach. And for those multisensory, a combination for all of them. Okay? There are several methods and techniques in doing adaptive blended learning. Okay? So, again, in the previous slide, we presented that it should be divided into 4 clusters and how we are going to deliver them. First is the simulation-based learning, the game-based learning, the inquiry-based learning, and then the project-based learning, and then the competency-based approach. So we're going to tackle each and every one of these. The first is the game-based learning. So we make the classroom into a gamification or gaming the classroom. Okay? So in a study, gaming in America, it has that it shows that 13 hours spent for children in gaming. And even female has 40% gamers. So if we try to include or to embed game-based learning, students will be uh, encouraged to do their online learning, to online platform, to this game-based approach. So this is a model of a gamification model. It includes the measurement, mechanics, rewards, and behavior. So In here, the measurement can be in a form of reputations, time, eh, meaning, and the mechanics can be in the form of, let's say, for example, a teacher who is handling an art subject wanted to do a visual clause or storytelling, and each of these, uh, in relation to STEM education, it must give a rewards and recognition, for them to enjoy, because this is a game-based learning, and it must also embedded with attitudes and behavior. Okay? Now, there are several platforms that support game-based learning, online and offline. Okay? For example, in the Philippines, we have this PET interactive simulation, which is available in Android and Windows, which are both free. And this type of game-based learning or application will uh, discuss topics on the field of physics, biology, chemistry, earth science, and mathematics. Okay? So it is interactive because it supports H plus and HTML5 version. Another is a code carbon. Okay, this is both available for Android and iOS for free. Okay? So it has also, a game-based approach. Well, applicable for students in K to 12 and BrainPop. Some of these are Kahoot. Okay? I'm trying to move this one. It's Kahoot. Okay? It's students who want to learn about physics online or over simulation platforms, Lighter and Minecraft. So Minecraft is a popular uh, games, but it has also an educational edition. The next is simulation-based learning. So why we need to do simulation? Okay? The phase is started with analyzing, strategizing, then we implement, and we compare it real-world behavior, and then we frame. So in simulation, this is a, a, a type of deliberate learning where, due to the unavailable availability of materials, hardware, especially this time of COVID-19 pandemic, where the labs is not probably not open, or it is very limited because social distancing should also be applied. A simulation software, both online and offline, can help students learn, particularly on workshop and technology and in the field of engineering. So, as you see, there are several studies that conduct use simulation. For example, Osgan Koka in 2018, software, okay, that used to teach mathematics, okay, and also another software that's used to teach science or physics. So this one is on physics, a electrical circuit, and there's an input, and then based on the prescribed input, it will generate an output. So instead of having a real circuit, you can use the the uh, this software to do simulation. Okay, yours truly, I have used in back in 2016 a simulation based type of learning by using a virtualization technology in order for me to deliver a course in information assurance security. So in here, basically what's in this course is that there's a practical aspects where I need several computers where one can act as a server and several workstation. So what is that? Is that for students to learn information security, they must know how to do some attacks, okay, or a sort of what we call as penetration testing. So because of the scarcity of the materials, what I do is that I utilize a self-emulation based learning. I use several software. Okay, so in their own computer and in my computer, I simulated a I installed both a server operating system and a client operating system. Okay? So the client operating system will try to, actually there are three operating system, one client, one server, and one operating system, virtual operating system, what will serve as an attacker. So that attacker will form several penetration systems. Like for example, Trojan attacks, steganography using this software, camouflage, and password cracking. Okay? So eventually, from the server, uh, students will see, okay, this is the effect of doing some of this penetration testing and attacks. And at the last, I was teaching the students through accessing the server using the virtual machine on how to provide security, from firewalls to uh, PQI, PNKI, or public key infrastructure, okay, and everything related to information security. So that's how simulation-based learning. So even in the absence of the physical equipment, it still can be done, especially in this time of pandemic crisis. So one approach again is a project-based learning. So basically, we understand here is that uh, it's like a formative assessment where all the learnings that learned by the students will be put through a project or will be assessed through creating a project. So it is a done normally in a project. It is done in a team environment, eh? And corporate innovators. But since at this time, due to the rules that is implemented, there's a social distancing, physical distancing, even to the students to avoid contact and spread and prevention of these viruses. The project-based learning can be done. Okay? Uh, for example, in this manner, in computer science, technology, and engineering, students in this study, the student was able to previously okay, use a Arduino microcontroller in creating a mini project. Okay? Another is there's a study on the use of Raspberry Pi. It's a form of a microcontroller in teaching Internet of Things and computer science and engineering. Okay? This one is a door locker where through a project-based approach, students will learn how the principles of Internet of Things is done through to making this project. And in computer science, a students will learn how to create a program, like example, a play robot, eh, a soccer robot. So all the things that they learn on several modules will be incorporated in one project. So eventually, it's more on a practical approach where they learn the theories and then they applied it through a project. Now, of course, we understand how can they implement this time because there's no materials on how I'm going to access those materials. And for example, this one it is not allowed because there's no pair coaching allowed. It should, if it is allowed, it should be done online. And again, we use tools online, cloud tools for project-based learning. So there are several cloud-based project learning not only in the field of computer science, engineering, and technology, but even in science and in mathematics. For example, in understanding the Raspberry Internet of Things, if the students don't have the physical Raspberry Pi, he can use an IoT online simulator from Microsoft. So this one, it looks like this one, so he can implement and show it to his respective teachers and instructors. Another is called Webduino. Okay, Webduino is a online platform in understanding or for students to learn about uh, what's that? Arduino programming over the web. So it is done online. For example, a student is going to develop a smart home. They can use this software or online platform to develop a smart home. It has several sensors on it, and also the interfaces and the codes are quite similar to what is in the Arduino. And it is another is Proteus. Okay, this is Proteus. This is uh, like a replica of an Arduino. Okay, so you can add several sensors. Even the actual code of Arduino is embedded on the simulation software. So it's like you are really making uh, uh, or you making a project using Arduino without the physical Arduino. So every program, the schematic diagram and everything is available. So even if the the materials are not available in nature physically, we can still perform project-based learning this time. Okay. The next is inquiry-based learning. So it's normally inquiry-based. It's an approach, particularly in students having these research subjects or class. So it has several phases. From introduction, do some exploring, designing the research, conducting the research, concluding the research, presenting, and deepening or broadening. So normally, in inquiry-based learning, it emphasizes students' role in the learning process. So which means it's more of a collaboration and they learn through their group work activity. So traditionally, inquiry-based learning, again, for example, in this one is the students work on the research plan. Okay, students of Petals, it's in Germany, and they work on a mind gap. Okay, so it's more on collaboration, and the progress of learning depends on how they collaborate. Okay, they engage in this type of learning. Okay, however, okay, may ask, is it applicable this time? Because again, we must follow physical distancing. Um, Only few days this should be in the classroom because of this blended learning. Okay, probably 2 days a week. Okay, and everything is done online. And how do the students perform this inquiry-based learning? So again, there are several tools online and available offline with the internet. Right? Example, the very common is that Facebook has revolutionized a new type of collaboration. Okay, it is normally for organization, educational institution, but students can utilize this workplace for collaboration because, as we all know, this time students and professionals are most of the time they are very updated in social media. Right? Most of the time is taken over the social media. So instead, workplace can be a great venue in doing workplace collaboration or is that the inquiry-based learning. And another is Slacks, okay, where one student can post and then uh, just like a social media, and then some of his peers can communicate, modify even the content, okay, so give some feedback. So it's done professionally, and only those registered students and that group can only access the materials or can view the materials. Google Docs also, as we all know, part of the Google suite for uh, education. So it has a Google document where, example, a research proposal. One student will make the proposal, and some students will give a feedback, modify the proposals. Okay, it's also possible in Google Docs because it's done online. Okay, as long as you have a Gmail account, okay, it is it's a collaboration tool. And one is Trilio also, where students will make some collaboration. Okay, through project management. I mean, it can also serve as a project management tool, this Trilio. Okay? So basically, even if uh, in this midst of crisis, this online platform can still do inquiry-based learning, okay, without the physical contact. The last is the competency-based learning. Okay? So the competency-based is more on the theory of learning, particularly in applying or adopting a blended learning. So when we try to embed and adapt a blended learning, we should have a theory that should be considered. And one theory in doing a learning methodology is a competency-based approach, wherein the students will be uh, assessed based on achieving if they achieve that learning outcome, and it is being done in personalized form, because in on it's embedded learning, it should be personalized, and it caters several different learning style, and uh, it is self-paced in nature. Okay, so basically, uh, in uh, in the popular MOOC, or the massive online education tool like Coursera, Udacity, Khan Academy, uh, Udemy, their methodological approach is in the form of competency-based learning. Okay, basically, every students and every learners were able to access their materials. Okay, based on its preferred learning style, and they are being graded and assessed if they achieve certain amount of competency. Okay, so in this manner, uh, they learn. Okay, basically it's one a virtual one-on-one approach. Okay, they get some inquiry through help from the teachers as facilitators, and the students will earn separate grades on what they know under habits of work. Okay, that means how they achieve, or when they achieve the level of competency. Okay, they can move from one level of competency to another. Okay, so in the Philippines, there is one uh, educational tool. This is the technical vocational education and training, supervised by TESDA. They come up with an online program, okay, available online both in computer and mobile devices, where students will learn a competency-based types of learning. Okay, so we have the game-based learning. The second is a simulation-based learning. We have a project-based learning, the competency-based learning, okay, and of course the inquiry-based learning. So that's all that relevant to blended learning using adapted type of approach. And stay healthy and keep safe. Thank you very much.